Chemistry, connection, compatibility, consistency, conflict skills, emotional availability, and deal breakers. Do not commit to a man if he does not have these 7 things. In this video, I'm going to dive deeply into each one of these things. I'm going to give you a rating as to whether I think these things are overrated, underrated, or perhaps appropriately rated, and how to know if a guy ticks all the boxes. If you've been to the channel before, welcome back. It's great to have you back. If you are new here, it's welcome. It's great to have you. Let's dive straight into these, starting with chemistry. Chemistry is the connection, it's the excitement, it's the electricity we feel for someone. And if I was to score it on a scale of underrated, rated, or overrated, I would call it overrated. Chemistry, if I was dating again, if I happened for any whatever reason to be single, touch wood, that will never happen. But if I did, chemistry would be one of the last things I would look for on this list. Now, does it still have some level of importance? Of course. And what I recommend for clients is that they get everything on this list up to at least a level of a 6 or so that they can make sure that everything is covered. But chemistry fades. Chemistry is exciting. Chemistry feels good. But of all the things on this list, it doesn't really in any way contribute to a long-term healthy monogamous relationship. It can make you feel good at the start, but out of everything on the list, and everything I've learned as a coach and being married myself, this is the least important thing. And I have to say, if I was dating again, this would be the one where I'd say, you know what, 5 or 6 is fine with me as long as I have the rest of the stuff. It's still important though. And my caveat here would be, I've worked with clients who have been in relationships on the other side of the spectrum where they've chosen guys who are logically good but have zero chemistry. And that has come back to bite them in the butt because usually they spend years in this kind of a relationship with no chemistry. They get really emotionally frustrated and drained by it. And then eventually they break up. It's inevitable. And then they get back to dating and they say, Mark, I'm never doing that again. And then they're on the hunt for a guy with an 11 out of 10 chemistry. And chemistry, because it was the thing that's missing, becomes the big focus. And you don't want chemistry to be the big focus. So the caveat here is don't pick a 0, don't pick a 2, don't pick a 4, but don't go for a 10. You probably don't even need an 8. Chemistry is important, but overall, I'd say it's overrated. The second is connection, and connection is underrated. Connection is the ability to be someone's friend. It's the ability to have stuff in common, to laugh with someone, to feel a vibe with someone. Connection is the ability to kind of sit with someone and say, you know what, I'd hang out with you all day even if you weren't hot. That's connection. And I can't tell you how important this is. Every successful couple I see, especially long-term, truly successful couples, they're best friends. They make each other laugh. They have things in common, even if it's simple interests. They found a way to stay connected. Now, sometimes connection takes work. Planning a weekly date night, planning nights for intimacy even. These things foster connection. So you do need habit and work to continue to foster connection. But ultimately, if you're going to be in a long-term monogamous relationship, as our society so often encourages, you want to have it with someone you're connected with. Chemistry will fade no matter what you do, but connection can grow and will grow if you work on it over time, but it needs to be there to begin with. So find someone who is that 7, 8, 9 in the level of connection. Find a best friend. Find someone you really enjoy connecting with. Of course, give people a chance. This doesn't mean on the first date you're going to show up and go, oh, this is the perfect best friend for life forever. No, sometimes connection takes a little bit. Give it time to grow over those first couple of dates. But make connection a priority. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm going to be with someone for the rest of my life, I want them to be a best friend of mine. Number 3, compatibility. I would say compatibility is appropriately rated. It's neither underrated nor overrated. Now, here's what I'm talking about when I say compatibility. A lot of people think compatibility is, well, we like the same movies or we have the same sense of humor. I call that connection. When I'm talking compatibility, I'm talking about the practical fits of life. In other words, you can have great chemistry and a phenomenal connection, but if you are a devout Christian and he is an atheist and that's how you want to raise your kids, then you are incompatible. If he lives in San Francisco, you live in New York, and neither of you has any intent to move, you are incompatible. If your bodies don't fit together sexually and there's no way to resolve it, unfortunately, you're incompatible. Compatibility can be work-life balance, money, health, religion, sex, whether or not you want kids, living location. Unfortunately, it also appears to be political these days. Even vaccine is becoming a compatibility thing. I don't necessarily agree with those. But you can see how if someone has very deep value in one of these things, and if you do, it becomes very hard to tolerate someone who doesn't have that value. 50 years ago, we were sort of around people with differing opinions all the time, and I think we had a lot more tolerance for this stuff. Now, especially with the internet, we are much more surrounded by echo chambers. We mostly follow pages that agree with us, or we might see the occasional page that's complete opposite to us. Most Facebook groups have a common interest. You meet a lot of the same people, so we become gradually less tolerant for these, what I would call more superficial incompatibilities, like whether or not someone is vaccinated. I mean, who cares about that? Point is, compatibility is very important. If you're not compatible, unfortunately, no amount of connection, no amount of chemistry is going to fix it. So you do have to look at compatibility. And compatibility is one of those ones where you can fix areas in it. I ended up with marrying a woman from New York halfway across the globe, but it is bloody hard to do. And you both have to be in for the work if you're going to fix an incompatible area. Number 4 is consistency. I think consistency overall is underrated. This is why you take time in dating. The 4th C, you need to make sure that someone shows up consistently over a course of time. This is how trust is built. This is how you can rely on someone. This is how you know you don't have to poke it to make it work. You can lean back and relax and that person's going to be there. They do what they say what they do, and most importantly, they do it over a period of time, not just for 2 or 3 dates. Consistency is extremely important. The thing I love about consistency, it's the one I can tell my clients and say, nope, you haven't checked consistency yet. Client comes to me and she says, Mark, this guy's amazing. We've been on 3 dates. He ticks all the boxes. I go, No, he does not. He doesn't tick all the boxes because you've only been on 3 dates. That's only been 2 weeks. No one can prove consistency over 2 weeks, so he doesn't tick all the boxes. Don't say that to me again. Consistency, very important, and one of the big reasons you take time before you commit to someone so you can see them in a range of different environments, a range of different life situations. You know, those 12 weeks that you take, however long it is approximately, it gives you time to see how someone shows up when they're not just super excited from the first couple of dates. The next C, and the final C, number 5, is conflict skills. John Gottman's research clearly shows that the number one thing that predicts a healthy couple and separates them from a toxic couple is not how much they love each other, it's not how much connection they have, it's not even how consistent they are, though I'm sure that helps. It's their conflict skills. It's how they do conflict together. Because if you tear each other down in conflict, it's going to breed resentment, it's going to come back to bite you, and it's going to erode the relationship. If you can do conflict well, if you can stay respectful, if you can stay open in conflict, and those two things can be very hard to do. They really can. Because if your partner's having an off day and they're attacking you, for you to stay open and for you to stay respectful is really bloody hard. And this is the most underrated on the whole list. And it's hard to see early because in dating, everyone's just worried about getting along. Do I connect with this person? Is the chemistry there? But this is why I push all clients to have a whole big wide range of boundaries and then practice delivering them with feminine energy. Because that creates a lot of conflict, healthy conflict in your new relationship. You need to make sure you do it right, because if you're just coming in to a new date with a man and just giving him a list of boundaries and telling him what to do, well, you're going to seem like a teacher or a mother and he's never going to want to be with you. But when you have a lot of boundaries and you know how to set them with finesse, using feminine energy, now you have a lot of conflict before you've even committed. Heck, before you've even been on a first date, you can have a lot of conflict. So having that conflict, that healthy conflict, super, super important. It's the most underrated thing out of all 7 that we'll speak on today. And yes, you can start it from even before the very first date. If you're ever in my program, I'll show you how to do that. The last 2 do not begin with C, which doesn't help the mnemonic, but we need to look at them anyway. The first is emotional availability. I did a video about this a few days ago, actually. I won't repeat what I said there if you want to check that video out on the channel. It's a couple of things. Is a man free, willing, and able to be in a relationship and to access his emotions? That's really what it comes down to. Is he free to be in a relationship, as in, is he not in a relationship himself? Is he willing to be in a relationship? Is he into you? And is he able to be in a relationship? Those are important, and those are the classic signs. But you also need to look at how do all those things go when he accesses his emotions. Go watch that previous video. But when you see a man tired, stressed, or triggered, often certain emotions get blunted or even removed completely. So emotional availability is not just relationship status. It's also about how good is he at accessing his emotions and communicating through them. Emotional availability, I'd say overall, is appropriately rated. I think a lot of people are aware of it these days. It still is very important despite that. So I'm not going to say it's underrated, but I'm also not going to say it's overrated because it is very important. The last one is deal breakers. And deal breakers are an exercise, they're your deal breakers. They're the things you wouldn't live without. They're your personal preferences, but they're the ones that you would not budge on. Deal breakers are interesting because each deal breaker basically says, I would rather be single and alone for the rest of my life than not have that trait. So for example, if you say, I want someone with a great sense of humor, that's a deal breaker for me, then you are basically saying, I will be single, I would rather be single and alone for the rest of my life than have someone who doesn't have a great sense of humor. That's a big call. I mean, okay, if that's really important to you, fair enough. But you also have to consider most clients have many deal breakers. So if you take the sense of humor one, and then you say, well, it's also a deal breaker that he has to be highly intellectual. It's also a deal breaker that he has to have read a certain number of books. It's also a deal breaker that he has to be over 6'1". You can see how these deal breakers, each one rules out a large swath of the population, including good men, to the point where there's basically no one left. So too many deal breakers, you're basically just committing yourself to being single for the rest of your life. The truth is, we all settle in some way. I've settled with Sam, she's settled with me, you'll settle with your future partner will settle with you. People don't like hearing that, but there are always ways that all of us settle when it comes to finding a partner. The only perfect partner is non-existing. You've got to be on your own if you want that. So deal breakers are interesting for that reason. I take clients through this individually. If you ever work with me, I'll do this with you. You need to think carefully about each one, and you need to check, okay, am I willing to be single for the rest of my life if I don't get this trait? And am I sure that this isn't ruling out too many good men? To use the height example, if you say, I only want men over 6'1", you're going to rule out a heck of a lot of good men with that. And remember, you still have all your other deal breakers, plus compatibility, consistency, connection, emotional availability, consistency, all of that stuff still to measure. So you don't want any one deal breaker to rule out too big a swath of the population, unless you are really just completely happy being single, which truth be told, I don't think most people actually are. I think people say they are, but I don't think it's actually true. I think it's more just cope. I think we all deep down want quality companionship to live our life with. So those are the 7: chemistry, connection, compatibility, consistency, conflict skills, emotional availability, and deal breakers. And you want all of them at a decent level. Rarely you're not going to get them all perfect. You may not even have any of them perfect. You might be 9-9, 8-8, 6-9-9. Or you might be 10-7, 10-7, 8-8-8. You want them all at a decent level. And then the rest of the work of the relationship and what actually builds the relationship is you guys figuring out the other ones together. Oh, we're only 6 out of 10 compatible. That's something we're going to have to work through, those incompatibilities. Oh, we're only 7 out of 10 connection. We're going to have to form connection habits to make sure that connection is good. Oh, he's only 6 out of 10 of my deal breakers. I might have to let 4 of those deal breakers go. So overall, do not commit to a man who does not have all 7 of these, while also understanding no man will have all 7 of them at a level 10 out of 10. And the same for any woman. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want a session with me, you can book it via the link in the description. Otherwise, hit the subscribe button with the little bell and leave a comment below. What did you think? Do the 5 C's make it easy for you? Have you encountered this? What are your thoughts? Please share them down in the comment section below. Guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next video very soon.